is a very interesting text. This is a wonderful verse. We have Kashyapa Muni, just to give a little bit of context here. Srimati Aditi is in the ashram of Kashyapa Muni and Aditi, their husband and wife, and she is feeling dismayed. She's the mother of the demigods, and the demigods are not visible before her. They're not present where she is, and she's feeling great separation from her children, who are obviously not ordinary children. And they have left her vision, and she's extremely dismayed. So now Kashyapa Muni, he is a great sage, and he has been for years, it's explained, for years and years, he's been meditating. He's away from the ashram, he's meditating, he's in trance. But he gets the sense that there's some disturbance, that something is wrong, something's amiss. So being also a responsible husband and caring for Aditi Devi, he returns to their ashram. And he can immediately feel that sure enough, yeah, something is amiss. And being a very, very great sage, he's a Prajapati, Kashyapa Muni. He's one of the progenitors. And he returns to the ashram and he knows that something is amiss. And what he immediately inquires about, where he immediately goes with his inquiry is, what's happening here with the regulative principles of the Shastras? You're upset, you're unhappy. There's an inauspicious mood here in our ashram. So what is happening in terms of the Shastric injunctions? So this is really an amazing glimpse into the mind of a great saintly personality, that when they see something amiss, there's not the same kind of lamentation, or there's not, what do I need? Do I need another car? Do I need another material possession? What's going to be the next thing that's going to make me feel satisfied? Really, the consciousness is, what am I not accepting that's already been given in Shastra, already been given by Krishna? What am I not availing myself of? What are we not approaching in the proper spirit? So this is just a really wonderful inquiry. And yeah, we see that, ultimately whatever we should be engaged in should be deeply connected to Krishna, deeply connected to Shastra. And this is not an unrealistic proposition. It doesn't mean that we need to give up our nature. It doesn't mean we need to give up our particular station of life. But that as Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport, that actually we can pursue whatever station of life we're in according to the injunctions of the Shastra, because the Shastra is so expansive and so inclusive that we are able to link in this way. So this purport mentions Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So these are kind of four general areas of life. Dharma, our duty. Artha, our sort of economic development. Kama, our sense gratification, our pleasure. And moksha, our ultimate liberation. That these are things that, according to our station in life, can be pursued, and they can be pursued properly. We have very little frame of reference for this, especially in the Western world, that, you pursue your purpose according to, I don't know, maybe what you feel or what you think is right. At best, what you think is right. Artha is, do the best you can, every man for himself. You just sort of try to earn whatever you can. If that means that you stomp on other people along the way, that's just what you do. And then Kama, sense gratification. I mean, you take one step into, New York City where you are, you see, what's happening in terms of that culture. Just, that is the highest goal of life. And, it's understandable that, in someone who is not so much seeking spiritual joy, that would be the ultimate goal of life. Because if we're just identified with this body, then why not? Then why not get as much sense gratification as we can? Because if we're thinking, this is me, then of course the best thing we can do is just get as many bodily pleasures as we can. So it's an unfortunate situation, but it's also kind of understandable according to the lack of spiritual engagement that we see in Kali Yuga. So, and then finally moksha. Yes, I mean we have maybe some very, very pious people who are seeking moksha. Moksha may take many forms, maybe impersonal liberation, maybe a devotional relationship. That also falls under the category of moksha, though it's different. It's, we hear about mukti. Mukti usually is considered to be some kind of liberation. In Vaishnav Siddhanta, we look at it in terms of we want to establish our eternal relationship, our eternal seva to Krishna. So that's our sort of liberation, if you can call it that. And it is a liberation from birth and death, from the material miseries, and it's our real occupation. So, as Srila Prabhupada explains, there are so many ways by which we can seek these different, we can say, different priorities of life, or of material life at least. We can seek them according to Shastra. So we see that household life, as given so nicely in this verse, is no exception. Varnashram dharma, different stages of life, different varnas. So these, the ashrams and the varnas. So ashram, we have brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprast, and sannyas. So you're a student, you're a householder, you pull back from your household life and deepen your spiritual engagement. And then ultimately, in some very special cases, you completely remove yourself from the material society and dedicate yourself fully to spiritual pursuit and to encouraging others in the same. So, so ultimately, we have this varnashram dharma, which helps us to progressively move along according to who we are, our nature, and where we're at. So this is a very beautiful feature of this system. And of course, our ultimate path is the same. Our ultimate path is Sanatan Dharma, the eternal function of the soul, which is relationship and service to Krishna and Krishna's parts and parcels. So we have, in this life right now, we have our other dharmas. We may have our own personal dharma, our swadharma, what we're meant to really do in this life, or what we're meant to offer. And we have also naimittika dharma, these temporary dharmas, and they have their place, but it's not the ultimate priority. So I may say, "Oh, I'm an American citizen. I'm an American citizen. I should really do the best I can to uplift the American people," something like that. So that's a sort of temporary naimittika dharma. I won't always be an American. The people who I'm helping won't always be Americans. And this is sort of a temporary designation. Same time, there's welfare work to be done, no doubt. But Srila Prabhupada also is very clear that the highest welfare work is helping people to discover their relationship to God, their nature as spirit soul, and that will empower them endlessly to do so many different things. So one important distinction here is the difference between grihastha and grihamedi. So Kashyapa Muni, when he's speaking to Aditi, he calls her Griha Medini, one who is attached to household life, but for the purpose of sense gratification. So as we pursue household life, some of us, we need to be very cautious not to enter into this sort of state of being a griha medis, that we're thinking, okay, I'm in the household life right now. I'm unsupervised. Things are simple. I don't have authorities who are just watching my every move. And that now I can really enjoy. Now I can really just kind of kick back, do things on my own terms, and have a grand old time. So, ultimately, of course, spiritual life is joyful at every moment if we're sincere and if we're really taking advantage. So not that we shouldn't be enjoying in household life or in any other ashram, but that it has to be the kind of enjoyment that we're encouraged to have through Shastra, which is the real enjoyment that satisfies the soul. So Grihasta is actually a very, very high platform. It's very, very rare. So it's something that if we're in household life, we really aspire to be a genuine Grihasta. And we hear Grihasta ashram, Grihasta ashram. So it is an ashram. And really, we have so many wonderful examples of how the home can be made into a genuine ashram. Krishna is really in the center. So in many cases, we worship the deity at home. Krishna becomes the center of the home in that way. So whatever we're purchasing, whatever we're cooking, whatever we're preparing, it's all going to Krishna. And Krishna is really the main proprietor of the home, and we're just guests in Krishna's home. That's the mentality of a genuine grihasta. So, this is a significant distinction, that to be a grihasta is a very, very high platform. Sometimes we think that it's sort of more materialistic than being in a different ashram. But at the highest level, it really isn't. But we have to be careful, because yes, actually there is more space to kind of fall into this enjoyment, fall into this sort of grihamedi position, as we're cautioned in this verse. But ultimately, to be a genuine grihasta is a very high position. We have so many examples, of course. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada himself, before he took sannyas, he was, working as a pharmacist. He had his family, but he was so deeply engaged in his seva, in Guru seva. And he was writing even at that time, and so many things were going on, but he was focused. And, even Srila Prabhupada's early disciples are also wonderful to think about. These sort of pioneer disciples who established temples in San Francisco and London. So we have, Yamuna and Guru Das and Mukunda and Janaki, and we had Malati, Shamsundar. So these very early disciples of Srila Prabhupada who did such incredible empowered service. It's just unbelievable, mind-boggling to really think about their bravery, their courage, their surrender. So they were grihastas, and Srila Prabhupada was actually very proud of this. He said, my disciples, they're married couples, they're grihastas, but they're fully surrendered, and they're traveling all around the world. So we have so many great examples. And so we all work according to our nature, whatever our nature is. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he gave this principle of accept whatever is favorable to your Krishna consciousness, and whatever is unfavorable, reject it. So it's a very simple principle, but it requires a lot of honesty and a lot of contemplation and a lot of consultation with advanced senior devotees who really understand us and really, are walking us through our spiritual life. They help us to see what we should accept and reject in our spiritual life. And ultimately, Bhagavad Gita tells us it's better to do our own dharma, even imperfectly, than to do someone else's perfectly. So we have to be very honest about what our role is in life, and then we try very hard to follow the injunctions, the Shastric injunctions, in accordance with where we are. And as Srila Prabhupada emphasizes, there are different paths given in the Shastra. It's all inclusive, and we can find the injunctions that are relevant to us. And of course, there are injunctions that are meant specifically for certain ashrams and certain situations in life. And then there are also injunctions that are absolutely universal. So just one final point about grihasta life, since it's sort of highlighted here, that we all work to keep a roof over our head, especially in the modern age. It's just, you're just keeping a roof over your head. And Vasudeva Prabhu actually made this wonderful point that whatever we do under that roof determines how meaningful it is to work to keep a roof over our head. So if we're working to keep a roof over our head, just to be practical, that's all right. But what we're doing underneath that roof what we're pursuing in that space makes the work significant or insignificant, makes it an offering or not an offering. So this is very significant to remember. And as Srila Prabhupada explains, if we're just seeking sense gratification, whatever our ashram, whatever our situation, our happiness will be short-lived. So we don't want to focus too much on desires. And our desires, if they're satisfied, they turn into greed. And if they're not satisfied, they turn into anger. So our desires, as much as possible, our desires should be spiritual desires, because they help us to remember our spiritual nature. So Kashyapa Muni, he sees Aditi's unhappiness. He says, what's happening here in terms of the Shastric injunctions? So it's significant to remember about Shastric injunctions. I mean, we can be honest with ourselves. How many of us, especially before getting into spiritual life in some way or another, how many of us find rules appealing? How many of us find, these very stringent, injunctions? How many of us would find that appealing if we don't understand the import of them? So we have in Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, there are these wonderful injunctions. So there's the positive, Utsaha Nishchaya Daryat, Tatat Karma Pravartanat, Sangatyagat Satovritte, Sadbir Bhaktir Prasidyati. So these are things that will build up our bhakti, enthusiasm, patience, right? And then, but particularly speaking in terms of the injunctions, we have Tatat Karma Pravartanat. So following the injunctions, applying them practically, this will benefit us. The other side, you have Atyahara Prayasascha, Prajalpo Niyamagraha, Janasangas Chaloyal Cha, Sadbir Bhaktir Vinashyati. These are things that will destroy our bhakti, gossiping, acquiring too many things. And one of them is following the rules and regulations just for the sake of it, just mechanically. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he's really warning against this, that in order to follow the injunctions properly, and also in order to be inspired to do it, this is really what we're seeing here. We need to understand what the purpose is. We need to understand how it will really help us in our spiritual life. And that makes it exciting and inspiring and meaningful. Otherwise, it's just this mechanical thing. We might really burn out. So I keep going back again and again. I meant to mention this, I think, one of the last times we met here, that Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, he made this wonderful point of the regulative principles. They're not just moralistic codes. It's really to help us to see God. It's really help us to see Krishna and become purified. Our senses become purified in such a way that we're not pulled here, there, and everywhere. That we can really have a little focus. So when you hear it in that way, it becomes inspiring. So let's see. Yeah, so it's great also, this example of if we can look at our own happiness or unhappiness in terms of this Shastric injunction, it's very humbling. Sometimes when we're feeling unsatisfied, we may be thinking, oh, maybe I need this, I need that. I can certainly say for myself, just thinking about, oh, well, maybe if I had this, then I would become happy. Or maybe if I had that, then I would become happy. But to look at, honestly, how am I doing in terms of the Shastric injunctions? How am I doing in terms of these beautiful, incredible, revelatory, instructions, this path that's being made available to us? How am I doing in terms of my following, my focus, my enthusiasm? This is a great thing to look at. And I was very inspired by that in this verse, that's a great way to assess our happiness or unhappiness. At least as an initial thought, we can think about that when we're evaluating how we're doing and how we're feeling. And so ultimately, of course, Srimati Aditi is a very, very, very elevated personality. Not that we're making some example of her as a Grihamedi, because we see in the subsequent verses that this is absolutely not the case. She's a saintly personality. But this is a great way for us to evaluate where we are. And yeah, Krishna is giving everything. So yeah, the material conditioning tells us, I need more. But what we can focus on also is how absorbed am I? How sincerely am I following my path? Am I trying to be progressive in my spiritual life? So, we see so many examples of people in material life they may be extremely wealthy, famous, whatever it may be. And they have been conditioned to feel that if I have X, Y, and Z, I'll be happy. And then we see rare examples where people do obtain X, Y, and Z, and they may even EFG, whatever it might be, they attain even more. And then they're so dismayed because they feel, I'm unhappy. My whole life I've been believing that if I had this, I would become happy. And I defied the odds. I'm one of the rare people in the world who actually achieved it or attained it. And then they feel very, very unhappy because that was supposed to be everything. That was supposed to be bliss. And, it's very interesting that most of us in material life, we don't have that particular karma to attain those goals. It's rare enough that you become very materially successful. So most of us, we just spend our life in a sort of pursuit, like a carrot on a string, We pursue that, and we're thinking again and again for our whole life, or lifetimes, of course. We're thinking, if I just had this, then everything would be hunky-dory. I'd be really happy, But ultimately, it's important also to look to those examples of people who have attained it, and still are feeling unhappy and dismayed. So, we try to remember, that the soul is anandamaya. It is pleasure seeking. Like a heat seeking missile, our soul is pleasure seeking. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy, wanting to have pleasure in our life, but we have to think about what will really deliver that, what will really bring that, and what will really give pleasure to the soul. So yeah, so it's the duty of everyone. Yeah, this is from Srila Prabhupada's purport in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, which is whatever you do, whatever you offer. Right? I'll read the verse. Forgive me, sometimes I'm just paraphrasing verses. It's nicer if we can really hear. So that's yat karosi yad ashnasi, yaj juhosi dadasi yat tapashyasi konteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So this comes through in this verse and in this conversation with Kashyapa Muni and Aditi Devi, that ultimately, you're living your life, but are you doing it as an offering to Krishna? And if you're really trying to do that, then so much happiness is there, so much encouragement is there, and ultimately a lot of reciprocation comes because Krishna is merciful. It's not out of line to say that reciprocation will come. Of course, we don't hold our breath waiting for it. That's not really the consciousness that we want. But Krishna is captured by any kind of show of love that we can offer, any effort we're making. So Srila Prabhupada says that it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Ultimately, household life is lost in confusion, he says, if Krishna is forgotten. So ultimately we can say, remembrance equals happiness, forgetfulness equals distress or sadness. Srila Prabhupada, we have chant Hare Krishna and be happy, which sometimes feels like very simplistic, but what it's coming from is chanting Hare Krishna means remembering Krishna. So we'll be happy. We'll be happy if we're remembering Krishna. And that was one of Srila Prabhupada's personal prayers. Lord, you can send me into hell. Just don't ever let me forget to chant your holy name. That would be, ultimately what he's saying is that would be hell forgetting to chant Hare Krishna, forgetting the importance of remembering Krishna. So how do we remember? We remember through chanting. And, we have many processes of bhakti, but particularly chanting. Just wanted to share, this was really, came through also in reading this verse and in this purport. We have such a beautiful, let's see. I'll find this. Sorry. Okay, yeah, this is a beautiful song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Sri Nam, it's called. And this is just amazing in terms of, what we spoke about and what Srila Prabhupada speaks about in this purport. It's amazing, these songs, they're so potent, they're not just nice, catchy songs for us to sing. The whole philosophy is in these beautiful bhajans. So I'll just sing. Gai Gora Madhur Sware, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grihe tako, vane tako, sada hari bole dako, suke duke bulo nako, padane harinam korore, maya jale bada hoye, acho miche kajaloye, ekono chetana peye, Radha Madhav nam bolore, Jivana hoilo shesh, Nabajile rishikesh, Bhakti vinodo padesh, Ekbar namrase matore. So how I wish we could do this call and response and do it together. Just wanted to be conscious of the time. So I'll just read this translation because it's really powerful. So Lord Gaur Sundar sings in a very sweet voice. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Whether you are a householder or a sannyasi, constantly chant Hari Hari. Do not forget this chanting, whether you are in a happy condition or a distressful one. Just fill your lips with the Harinam. You are bound up in the network of Maya and are forced to toil fruitlessly. Now you have obtained full consciousness in the human form of life, so chant the names of Radha Madhava. Your life may end at any moment, and you have not served the Lord of the senses, Rishikesh. Take this advice of Bhakti Vinod. Just once, relish the nectar of the holy name. So this just encapsulates everything. Whatever station of life you're in, whatever our circumstances are, we just try to remember Krishna. We try to chant. We try to allow our circumstances to really facilitate and deepen our progress in spiritual life. Ultimately, it should deepen our desire to serve. It should deepen our service itself. It should deepen our love, ultimately, and deepen our affection for the devotees. Also, that's very, very important. So, yeah, this is just a beautiful song given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it encapsulates this verse that we try to follow the injunctions, whatever station of life we're in. It's all there for us, and it's something that can really be applied personally and brighten our life, give so much hope. So stop here. Thank you all so much for your Sangha. I'm really grateful. And any thoughts, any questions? I'd love to hear. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dina Bandhu, for an amazing presentation. We have a question that I saw in the chat. So it goes like, what if other members of the family are not interested in spiritual life? How do one handle that?
Yes, this is very, very challenging. We have different, I see, just in my own case and with different devotees who I've, been friends with and come to know, like that we have different lots that were dealt in terms of how our family might react to our spiritual life. It's very hard. In my own case, I was fortunate. I didn't have to really struggle too hard in that way. My parents were accepting, not that they personally took interest in Krishna consciousness, at least at this point. Certainly, that would be wonderful if it came, but they sort of said, okay, well, if that's something you're interested in, that's something that really gives you happiness, then we accept it, we support you. But then when it came to, for example, telling other relatives, explaining to other people what I was into and everything, that was, I think, very hard for them, and maybe, tested them in terms of, how they wanted to portray me to other loved ones. So when other members of the family are not interested in spiritual life, this is just my personal opinion, and open to other perspectives. But my personal feeling is that we definitely shouldn't force it. We definitely shouldn't get fanatical with them. I catch myself sometimes like preaching to my parents, and I'll say, like you can share ideas, but sometimes I catch myself getting a little too intense or something like that, because for us, we're trying to be immersed in this knowledge. So we don't always realize how intense it may come across. And so, but what we can do really is to be happy in Krishna consciousness, try to make our own progress, and they know you and they love you, and they'll see your transformation. They'll see the positive aspects. So emphasize the positive things. Emphasize how it's made you happier, how it's given you fulfillment. Also, if you like to prepare prasad, if you're visiting with your family and you can cook for them, they'll just be, even materially speaking, they'll be amazed at the wonderful preparations that we have in our Krishna conscious culture, the different things that we can make and offer. And also just to let them see the fulfillment that you're getting. Sometimes our family, they truly do want us to be happy, but they're evaluating our happiness according to what would make them happy or what would make them unhappy. So they may see you practicing some austerities or something, for example, and they're thinking that would make them miserable. So they're saying, why do you need to do this? But you try to show them that it's making you happy and it's enlivening you. So ultimately, I like to put it, concisely, that we try to just continue in our path, but to be considerate of their comfort, what they're comfortable with, what they would like to hear about, what they may not like to hear about, but try to maintain relationship. Ultimately, it comes down to relationship. They have affection for you, and you're a devotee. They have affection for you, and you're a devotee, so they will develop some affection for devotees, for Krishna consciousness, because it's associated with you. So the relationship is important. So that's what I would say about that. But it's a longer discussion, and it would be great to speak about more. Thank you for that wonderful question. Adi Purusha Prabhu, thank you so much for your encouragement. I really appreciate that. I see. Nice.
I see your question at the end also. There are two questions actually. You can choose to take towards the end.
Amuna Jai, thank you. Kaylee, thank you so much. Yeah, Paula, thank you. Kula, thank you. OF. Okay. We have. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'll try to address. Yeah. Murli Gopal. Why did Kashyapa Muni call his wife a Grihamedini? Yeah. Because he's a sage. He has a certain kind of adhikar that we don't have. I don't have. You have. But the certain kind of adhikar that I don't have. That sadhu, right? Sadhu means to use words that cut the knot in the heart. And also, of course, this is just an example. Just like we know that Arjuna, on some level, yes, he's bewildered and he's begging Krishna for guidance. Also, he's an extremely advanced personality, extremely advanced devotee who was a personal friend of Krishna. So it's also, to some degree, this is, we're learning from this. But Mother Aditi, what we see is that in the subsequent verses, she speaks incredibly eloquently, shares spiritual gems, and provides also a wonderful discourse. So that's the sense that I get Murli Gopal Prabhu, that it's sort of this sadhu quality of like saying, using cutting words, but also it seems that Kashyapa Muni is genuinely concerned about this also. He feels that the injunctions are not being followed. That's his inkling when he comes back and sees the inauspicious and miserable kind of mood. So that's where it comes from. That's what I think. Anyway, so some require an intense working endeavor to keep a roof over their head, and those sharing that roof in good condition. For instance, if children are there, then more endeavor might need to be there in order to take care of them. What to speak of just tasting a bit of material gain? Either way, I could see the material endeavor becoming consuming. Yes, we're not strong enough. How can we avoid this? Yeah, this is a wonderful question. Oh my goodness. So yeah, there's sort of what we want and what we need. That's one thing, that we are encouraged to live simply, simple living and high thinking. Of course, in the Western society and especially New York City area, it's like even to live simply means we have to be making like a tremendous amount of money, which is really, really daunting and frightening to think about. So what we try to do is we really try to have a daily sadhana. That's like our strongest kind of safeguard. Jai Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar Gaur Chandra Ki Jai. Yeah. So I'll just finish here. So yeah, we try to have some safeguard in terms of daily sadhana, and we try to do what we can to remember Krishna. Worship in the home is very important. So like you said, keep Krishna in the center. So if we're kind of living household life and working, we try to make our household and our life there as Krishna conscious as possible, so that even if we are working a little intensely and kind of becoming a little consumed by work, you're becoming consumed by work that helps you to maintain this ashram. So yeah, more to be said about that. But thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.